second by Ms. Hamlin. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and the agenda is approved as printed. We start first with the Instructional Services Committee. The chair recognizes the chairwoman of the Instructional Services, Dr. Dillard.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Instructional Services Committee has 4 action items and 2 presentations. We're going to begin with IS1 Gallup presentation. Dr. Lovett.
Thank you, Dr. Dillard. Good afternoon, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. It is my pleasure to share with you building engagement to drive student achievement. And this is going to recap our FY23 Gallup implementation, the summary, as well as next steps towards building stakeholder engagement. We'll start here with our newly adopted mission and vision. And the mission of the Bibb County School, the Bibb County School District maximizes student achievement and social and emotional well-being by building a sense of community in safe and equitable learning environments. And our vision, our students are empowered to learn, to lead, to innovate, and to serve as productive and caring citizens within their chosen paths of success. And here is how we're going to reach that mission and the vision. Of course, we have our 3 goals, and those 3 goals are centered on student achievement, staff effectiveness, and finally, stakeholder engagement. Our guiding principles: personalized learning, collaboration, engagement, safety, and effective leadership, and all for the purpose of reaching the outcomes listed here on the right, and that our students will be matched and enrolled, motivated to enlist, motivated for entrepreneurship, and meaningfully employed. Ultimately, we want our students to be able to walk away knowing that this experience we put together is for them, and they can truly say it is for me. So here's our agenda for today. The purpose of the presentation, again, is to provide an overview of our FY23 engagement efforts, including our Gallup Year 1 implementation. Here's the roadmap we will follow. We'll start by talking about those engagement efforts from FY23, elements of an engaging workplace. Then we'll talk about our Gallup survey results, our Gallup student poll overview, and how we're going to move the work forward in year 2. Our takeaway: as we continue to build stakeholder engagement of students, parents, staff, and community, plus strengthen staff effectiveness to drive teaching and learning, we will indeed maximize student achievement. So we'll start here with our engagement efforts. Now, this last school year, we focused everything on community and building a sense of community and really spending time in our school district, engaging with our students, our parents, and our teachers, as well as staff. We started with community town halls, which were led by our very own superintendent, Dr. Sims. We also formed student advisories at every school. Proud to say that we visited every single school, had an opportunity to engage with students. We also had a parent advisory, which was made up of parents who represented every school year in the district, and our teacher advisory, which was made up of the district's teachers of the year from each respective school. Finally, we launched our Show Up campaign, which we were very excited to talk about building the engagement of our students and our staff. And the second part of the work, which we're going to go a little bit more into today, is all about Clifton Strengths and the Gallup work that we're doing. We had an opportunity to launch the Gallup Global Strengths Coaching Cohort, which was made up of a group of principals who volunteered to continue the work, as well as additional staff members from throughout the district, but to go deeper into the area of Gallup strengths so that we can continue this work around engagement and becoming a strengths-based district as we move forward. We also launched the Employee Engagement Survey. You will hear more about that today. And finally, our student poll. Now, here are a few highlights from the Gallup's work that we had an opportunity to engage in, particularly the Gallup Global Strengths. And I did mention that we were very excited out of the group of over, I believe about 15, the majority of them, in fact, the vast majority of them were school principals who wanted to take the opportunity to go deeper into the work. And I'll just highlight a few of the things that they said here. We had principals who noted that they were excited to participate in the training, gave them a deeper understanding of how to use strengths to build effective leadership teams at the school, and how, in fact, when we appreciate and value the strengths of others, we tend to create stronger teams. We also have some additional statements here from additional principals who noted that their school direction will be headed into the same place, really getting everyone on the same page in terms of building strong schools, strong students, and continuing to become a strengths-based district. And finally, becoming a Gallup Global Strengths Coach has provided me with the necessary tools and skill set to leverage a person's strengths and empower them to become the best version of themselves, which ultimately is our goal, not only for our staff, but for our students, again, as they go on the journey of becoming for me or making those for me choices for themselves and having choice-filled lives. So we'll talk here about elements of an engaging workplace. According to Gallup's research, there are 3 types of employees, and you will see this as we go through the results today. Those 3 types of employees are engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged. Now, the engaged employees are those who are loyal. They're psychologically committed to the organization and tend to be more productive and more likely to stay or be retained. Those individuals who are not engaged may in fact be productive, but they are not psychologically connected to the work and may miss additional work days and in fact may be more likely to leave. And finally, those individuals who are actively disengaged. Now, these are persons who may be physically present, but they are psychologically absent, they're unhappy with the workplace, and insist on sharing that unhappiness with others. Here you'll see there is a strong connection between engagement and bottom line results, and this is just more information to kind of build up to why we're going into this very important work. 41% lower absenteeism amongst those who are engaged in the workplace, 5% lower turnover. As you consider retention in the future, those individuals who are more engaged are more likely to stay at the workplace, 70% fewer safety incidents, and 17% higher productivity. Now, as we assess Gallup here in the district, or as we assessed Gallup engagement here in the district, we had an opportunity to do an employee engagement survey. And that survey was made up of these 12 questions that Gallup has identified. This is based on years of research across many organizations. And you'll see this notion of a hierarchy. This basically focuses on employees' needs, starting with basic needs. And you'll see the questions associated there. Basic needs focused on what are the things that I get from the organization. The individual contribution, what do I give? Teamwork, do I have a sense of belonging? And growth, how do I grow as an employee? You'll see on the right-hand side the employee needs that are highlighted here and how the Gallup questions correspond to those respective needs. So let's talk about the state of our organization. So starting here, you can see that we had a sample size of 2,483 individuals of about 3,000 plus employees here in the district. In terms of the percentile rank, you will see that being a 62nd percentile rank, participation 72%, and the engagement ratio that's represented here. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But the biggest piece I want to point out is the grand mean. And this notion around grand mean is basically an average. And the closer you get to 5, the higher and the more engaged individuals are determined to be. So if you're looking at our score here, you can see that for our first time in issuing this particular survey, our average or our grand mean was 4.04. I'll also draw your attention to the response rates. You can see Bibb County compared to other organizations. When looking at Gallup Education's database, which is K through 12, there's about a 77% response rate. Gallup overall, across all organizations, 82%, and Bibb County being 72% for the response rate, which was a phenomenal first outing for the district. If you look to the right, you'll also see that grand mean or average compared to those same organizations, and you will see that overall, compared to education, K through 12, as well as other organizations, we actually had a grand mean of 4.04. Again, something to be very proud of in terms of our employees' engagement out of a scale of 5. So let's talk about the engagement segments here within the district. And I talked about a moment how those 3 areas look in terms of engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged. So considering that number of about 2,483 or so, 50% of those individuals were determined to be engaged based on their response to those questions that I presented a moment ago, 41% not engaged, and 9% actively disengaged. So it's important that as we go into the remaining part of this discussion today, you keep those numbers in mind, and that will help show you some of the strategies we're moving forward in terms of continuing to build our stakeholder engagement. And here it is compared to Gallup's overall database, 45%, 43%, and 12%. And this just compares the information to other organizations. If you look at the global workforce overall, you'll see about 22%. The U.S. workforce, 36%, other Gallup clients, 48%, and again, Bibb County being 50%. Now, our goal is to get to that place that you see on the right, which is Gallup Exceptional Workplace Awards, and that is organizations where engagement is over 70%. So that is our goal, and again, it is something identified in our strategic plan moving forward, continuing to build engagement. Now here are the Q12 items or the questions that were asked, and this gives you an idea of how our employees responded to the particular survey. Now while I will not go through all of the questions, I will draw your attention to those areas that are the dark green and the lighter green, and where you see the larger bars or the longer bars, those are the areas in which we scored the highest. So looking at the information here in front of you, you will see that we scored highest amongst expectations or employees understanding or having basic needs being met, what I get, and then you can see the rest of that from there. You'll also see feeling as if someone cares was also an area of particular strength here in the district, as well as the opportunity for development being another area, as well as learning and growing. So really seeing how we've set an excellent foundation for the path towards overall engagement moving forward. And again, our employees are kind of at that bottom base in terms of getting their basic needs met, feeling like that individual contribution is something that's satisfactory. Here's some additional item analysis. There were 2 questions that we elected to add to the survey. The first one was about feeling like a valued member of the team. And you'll see the mean there being 4.05. Again, as a reminder, out of 5 is the number that we're looking for. So you'll see that our employees there ranked in that 41st percentile. The second piece is the leadership is creating a future I want to be a part of. Again, 3.96. Again, as a reminder, this is a baseline year for us, so we're just kind of sharing where we are now in the hopes that we will continue to grow in these respective areas. Here you have engagement levels by school, engagement by school level. You'll see the overall engagement there on the left-hand side, again, the grand mean being 4.04. And if you look across elementary, middle, and high, you see very similar trends, with our elementary employees being slightly more engaged than compared to their respective other grade levels. Here's another way of looking at the information. This is by school leader. We wanted to make sure that we dug deeper and looking at how our principals feel, our assistant principals and teachers in particular. And you can see amongst this group, our principals feeling the most engaged in terms of that percentile rate being about 82% or 82nd percentile, the current mean being 4.61. And you'll see similar trends when you look at the leadership of the organization, creating a future that our employees desire to be a part of. Those numbers are reflected the same way, principals being most engaged, assistant principals, and teachers slightly behind. Let's talk about our student poll. Now, the student poll looks at several areas. The first piece here is starting with engagement amongst our students. I'll draw your attention to the right-hand side. Overall, we had 6,389 students who participated in the student poll. The student poll is administered to students in grades 5 and up. So starting with the grand mean, you can see that grand mean is 3.83 in terms of our students' overall engagement. And that is compared to the overall engagement across the Gallup database. So we are right in line with what is happening across the nation in terms of our students' engagement, right at 3.83. Looking at the information in front of you, I won't go through all of them again, but just to point out a few areas of strength that were noticed here. Students feeling as if they had best friends at work was an area of strength. Having at least one teacher who gets them excited about the future is also noted as an area of significant strength, as well as teachers making them feel that schoolwork is important. Those were all areas in which we scored the highest. Here's another way of looking at the student poll engagement index, very similar to what I shared a moment ago, but you'll see the trends just looking simply at the colors. Bibb County compared to the Gallup student poll database looks very similar in terms of how our students are faring in terms of engagement according to this measure. Here's another representation by grade level, and you will see again just looking at the area that has the largest bar with the green there, our 5th graders being the most engaged at about 65%. The goal represents not engaged and actively disengaged is represented in red. In addition to engagement, the student poll also looks at additional measures, and one of them being hope. And so this first piece is just looking at how many students answered these particular questions. You'll see 6,710 for this particular measure. The grand mean being 4.29, just slightly higher than the Gallup database overall. I'll point out some areas of strength here as well. Students feeling as if they know they'll graduate from high school, having a great future ahead of them, and knowing that they will find a good job in the future. Here's another way of looking at that information. I'll point out here for the student poll and the HOPE index, it actually looks at it slightly different than engagement. This particular index looks at how our students are feeling in terms of being hopeful, which is represented in the green, stuck, which is represented in the orange, and discouraged, represented there in the red. Again, as we continue to work of rolling out our strategic plan, this is some information we're hoping to continue to target through our efforts in the area of both student achievement and in the area of stakeholder engagement. Continuing to work very closely with our students and our student supports, additional wraparound supports, and our curriculum and instruction, just to help instill that sense of hope amongst our students. There's another way of looking at that information, and again, you'll see that our numbers overall are pretty commensurate to what you're seeing across the nation. Another piece of the student poll looks at belonging. The grand mean here is 3.5. So this is looking at how students felt in terms of their sense of belonging. The highest one here is students knowing that there's an adult at school that they can count on for help, followed by some other areas feeling like school is a good place for students, feeling like I belong, and then classmates caring was the area that's not as high as the others, but again, as we continue to roll out our efforts with our strategic plan, particularly as we look at social emotional supports and wraparound supports, this is an area that we're hoping to continue to target and grow. Here you'll have some more information in social emotional learning questions that were included as well. And you'll see the highest here is being a good listener. Our students felt as if they were good listeners when their friends are upset or angry about things, but also disagreeing with other people, finding good solutions to problems. 3.33, again, kind of middle of the road there. And then a challenge here listed for our students was the ability to explain what's bothering them, being able to talk about how they're feeling when they're engaging with other people. Again, these are all areas of critical focus for us as we roll out our strategic plan. So as we wrap up here, we'll talk about how we're going to continue building and sustaining engagement here in the school district. The first thing to note is that engagement is everyone's responsibility. This is something that we firmly believe. Starting with our leaders, we believe that we provide the overall direction and the vision. It's our job to remove the barriers, reinforce the values, and the direction through role modeling actions and decisions. We're working with our managers to ensure that we're creating an environment where engagement can happen, that our managers are participating in action planning, and they are also conduits for leadership and the organization. And you can see the additional information for teams, making sure that as we work together as teams, we continue to create an engaging culture, we're building and implementing action plans, and as individuals, we are taking responsibility for our engagement. Again, I'll bring you back to our Show Up campaign, which was all about helping our students begin to take ownership for their engagement as well. This just talks about the cascade effect of employee engagement. Managers who work for engaged leaders are more likely to be engaged, and again, employees who are supervised by highly engaged managers are 59% more likely to be engaged. So again, engagement is all of our responsibility. So finally, you have here some of the steps that we're taking as we move into year 2. The hope is that as we, after today, if the information is approved to move forward in terms of Gallup, that we will be continuing the employee engagement survey plus the student poll. But in addition to that, we're going to continue focusing on or conducting focus groups so that we can study the best practices of our top leaders and teams. But we do have some additional deep dives that we have in terms of this information is looking at it by school. So we're able to identify some of the high-performing teams and high-performing schools. And we're going to spend time looking at what they're doing. What are those best practices? What are their teams doing that we can share with others? It is also our goal to continue to communicate overall results within the organization after we do the year 2 survey administration. We will also be including a requirement that each leader has those continued conversations with their teams. Our principals did engage in that in this first year. Also setting expectations around action planning to be completed within the first 45 to 60 days of sharing results, taking the time to celebrate progress. One of the things that we saw overall is that our employees want to feel celebrated for the great things that they're doing, and we want to continue to do that as we're working with teams and managers who've demonstrated success, as well as having our team leaders report on the best thing their team is doing as a result of their action plan. And finally, you will see it listed here in green. All of this work is very much embedded in what we're doing in our new strategic plan. So we will be continuing our stakeholder engagement efforts as we continue that rollout. There's final information to speak to the copyright in terms of the data that I shared with you from Gallup. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett. Are there any questions, board members? Dr. Boyd.
Hi. I remember participating in Gallup many years ago in the system, and I'm glad to know that you've done the student part of this. My question.
Dr. Boyd, can you keep a little closer to your mic?
Yes, yes. My question is, I know we have all kinds of data that we collect on our children. Do our teachers know those children that are stuck? Do they have that data? Because to me, that would be one of the most important things to have as a teacher, to, you know, say, no, you're not gonna be stuck after year 20. You know, so that kind of mission to get those kids unstuck. So they do have that data available to them.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Garrett Boyd. In terms of the student information that's available, this was an anonymous poll for students. So the teachers are not able to link it up specifically to the results for students.
Okay.
But I will say overall, I think Mr. Cassidy will make as we continue our efforts around all things kind of wrap around social emotional support, we are working with our student support teams to identify those students who may be in that space. That's part of the work that we're doing with things like Project Aware, working with our counselors and our social workers to really identify those students by need so that we can work very closely with getting support that they need to get unstuck. That is truly our goal as we work with students, particularly as you saw that day.
I can see that being so very active.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, board members? No? Mr. Martin?
So, the data about the children who feel hopeless does not identify the student.
That is correct. It is an anonymous poll, so it does not identify the student. Now, we do have the information broken down by school. So the schools are able to see, for instance, the data as it relates to their grade levels and things of that nature. They are able to get a little bit further, but it is not, it is anonymous information.
And we have programs in place to identify children who are having problems and need help.
That is correct. And Mr. Cassidy,
But we do have these programs.
we absolutely, yes.
Please understand, I'm trying to figure out what Gallup has done for us. Because what I've seen in the last year that results of Gallup are 5 descriptors or adjectives after people's names.
Okay.
And we're using this to identify teams that do well. But we think data at our school level already tell us who's doing well. And my concern is, quite frankly, at a time where money is an issue for this system, spending $200,000 on consultants to tell us things that I think we should really already know based on the data we already have. It might be nice to do this, and what I see in year 2 is a lot of the same things that were done in year 1. Tell me what the return on investment in this is that would justify continuing with this.
Okay, and thank you for your question, Mr. Morton. I will state you mentioned the 5 descriptors that you see after people's names. That piece is a part of the Clifton Strengths work that we've done. And that was something that we started with our managers. The goal is to continue rolling that out across the district, but that is to give our people an opportunity to identify those strengths. As managers, as we're working with our individuals, it gives us an opportunity to identify what our bandwidth looks like in terms of our team, which ultimately, those are things that we can also use to help us in terms of, we talked about return on investment, but cost savings of that nature. For instance, we talked about this a little on the operations side today, by having a better sense of how our staff persons are working. For instance, there are individuals who are identified as executors. Well, those are individuals who, in fact, may be able to better lead projects. Maybe those are the individuals that we look towards when we're leading initiatives or kicking off those initiatives. That's only one piece of the work. The piece that was shared today primarily focused on the survey results, which is employee engagement survey results. And those survey results, when I started out, I talked about how having a better understanding of what our employees' needs helps us with all things like retention, being something that's very important. Our employees having a sense of belonging or wellness, which is also critically important. You know, the pandemic showed us we have to focus on taking care of our employees and understanding what they need. This has given us an opportunity to have a deeper look into what our employees are saying in terms of their personal engagement, their personal productivity, their personal needs. And that was something that we did not have a very clear, at least not an analytical measure that captured that previously. This gives us a deeper dive, another tool to help us better manage and to better support that. As we look at moving forward, the thing that is positive, I guess, about the return on investment, if you will, looking in year 2, we'll have something to compare it with. We'll be able to see if those initiatives and strategies and things that we put in place have in fact helped us to grow in those areas. It is something we identified in our strategic plan in terms of stakeholder engagement and state and staff effectiveness. This is another tool, another monitor to help us better track how these things are moving the district along. So it's really just another way to better look at engagement, which I don't believe we had measured before, that gave us a clear picture of employee engagement in this same way.
So in year 2, we'll do more surveys to see if any of these numbers change.
We will continue the employee engagement survey, so we'll have that. This was our baseline year. We'll have some additional information in year 2. We will also continue the rollout of the Clifton Strengths, which will be something that we're rolling throughout the district. Our goal is to be a strengths-based district so that people better understand their strengths across the organization. So that is something we hope to continue in year 2 as well. And again, the third piece being the student poll. So we can, again, track to the degree to which our interventions and our solutions and initiatives that we put in place are making a difference in our schools and in the lives of our students.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there no questions? Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Dr. London, for your presentation. Last year, was this paid for with ESSER funds or out of the general fund?
It was paid for out of general funds last year.
So this year it's being also paid out of general fund.
That is correct. That's the recommendation.
Because it involves studying student well-being and student engagement, employee well-being, mental health aspect, is it something that could be paid out of ESSER funds?
That is certainly something we can explore further. I'm not 100% certain on what the conversation was the initial time around this. I don't know if that was something that was explored previously. And I'm going to ask Dr. Johnson, he led it initially this effort, so I'm going to ask him to answer what that was.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Freeman. When we first brought Gallup to the board, it was not in our ESSER fund budget because we had already finalized some of that budget process at the time. And so it was in the general fund for consistency purposes. That's why we kept it in the general fund again for this recommendation.
I know the budget has had some changes. There have been things, positions that people wanted to hire that weren't available, other things that have happened. If there were ESSER funds available, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot that they are, do you feel that this is something that could qualify for ESSER funds?
So of course, we would want to make sure with Ms. Roberts and Dr. Roberts that it's actually an allowable expense, and I can't say that for certain.
Okay. I will say from the presentation, the two things that kind of stand out as the benefit to this have to do with the best, from what I heard in your presentation, Dr. Lovett, was the best practices from successful teams. If we've got a team, a school that's doing something right, how do we replicate that in other places? And the stakeholder engagement. I know that's a big part of our new strategic plan and the rollout of that. I will say, we have a vote coming up on the millage rate. I've gotten a lot of feedback about that. And one of the things that is a lightning rod in some of those who oppose us doing anything other than a full rollback is that we're hiring a consultant at $200,000 that they don't see the benefit. So like Mr. Morton, I'm trying to see, is that a justifiable expense? Is there another, is there another source of funds other than the general fund that can be used for? And I'll just say, based on the fact that it is a lightning rod for that argument, and based on there's a potential that it could be funded from ESSER funds, and I don't know the answer to that, I'm not going to support the action items done. So, thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you for your presentation.
My pleasure.
I'm too, and like, Mr. Freeman, my concern was that the funds were coming out.
Would you speak in the mic, please? We can't hear you.
My concerns were that the funds would be coming out of the general fund rather than the ESSER fund. and we'll talk about that when we go over
Yes.
the budget. So I was wondering also, could that come out of the essence fund? And the other thing is with the student enrollment index by grade, I'm looking at how the students fare with engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged. What concerned me the most is what percentage of the students were actually engaged. Now, I see in grade 5 and 6, we have 65% of the students that are actively engaged. I say they were actively engaged, and 51% in the 6th grade said they were actively engaged. Then you look at 12th grade, 37% were actively engaged, 30% not engaged, and 33% actively disengaged. Same thing with grade 11, grade 9, 10, and so on. So I'm just wondering, if so many students are either not engaged or actively disengaged, how would this help them to get engaged?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. So the poll is not necessarily designed to help them get engaged, but it's really to give us a lens into this information. I don't know that we've had a poll or information in the past that has been as clear to show us what percentage of our students are feeling this way. And again, the student engagement poll is made with several questions. The piece that is, I think is really important here and kind of helps drive our action planning are the questions that make up that number that you see. And so if we look at that information, you can see things, for instance, on here, students feeling safe in the school. So if we take something along that line, it tells us 3.57 in terms of the overall number there out of 5. So if we know 3.57 is that number that we have here, we need to do a deeper dive. This really says to us, these are some areas that we need to target, we need to be critically clear about as we approach initiatives and we start looking at how we're rolling out supports and plans in schools. If we have students who are not feeling safe, that says to me we need to do a deeper dive. And so that's really what this was designed to do, to give us really a baseline or a place to start in better understanding where our students are, similar to what we do with academic measures. The same way in which, for instance, when we're doing a math or some of those other things, it gives us a picture, for instance, of where our students are faring in the area of literacy. We know that our students are faring at whatever lower percentile, then as we start organizing efforts, not just efforts, but resources and all of those other things, we're able to better target the supports that we're putting in place and those additional programs, services, what have you, to target those things that we see are areas of concern. So this is really used in that way. It really helps us in the action planning. To me, the biggest return on investment for something like this are the actions that we can take as a result of receiving this information.
Okay, the other concern, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
The other concern is, I think I heard you say that the students in the survey are not identified.
That is correct.
So if they are not identified, how are we to know where to work?
So what I mentioned as well, we have the information broken down by school. So for instance, if we were looking at a school, take one of our schools, and we have information by grade level, then we're able to provide support or look at additional services, whether it's something in our curriculum that we're doing, whatever it is, we're able to better target those things. While it may not get to the individual kid level of targeting, it helps us at the action planning level in terms of looking at the resources and the programs that we're putting in place, which is where we want to start the intervention. So we're looking at intervention, we're going to start at that tier 1 place. We want to touch as many kids as possible. If I'm looking at a number like that and it's this low, I want to provide a resource that's going to address the majority of our kids. As we continue things like the multi-tier system supports and RTI, SST, all of that stuff, is designed to help us go deeper. It's designed to help us identify kids. That's where we get into the identification place and create those individual plans.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett.
I have one more question if you didn't mind.
We do need to move on, Ms. Johnson.
I did want my question answered.
Go on, but I
Thank
still
you.
have a question that's holding us up.
If I was a principal in one of these schools,
Yes, ma'am.
and I knew from the survey that I had 60-some% of my students disengaged, I wouldn't know where to start. Because like if it's my 12th grade class, and I'm supposed to identify these students or help my teachers to know how to plan for these students, then I would be at a loss at how to start, when I don't even know who the kids are.
Yes, ma'am. And so that's again, we would look at the percentage overall. If I knew that I had 66% of my 12th graders who were not engaged, then the intervention that I would put in place would be a larger intervention that addresses all kids, because 66% is obviously the majority of students. So in that place, the intervention would be good for the majority of kids. And again, as we continue to work with the more specialized supports and services, it doesn't replace any of that, but as we continue to work with those additional services and supports we have, we're able to drill down even more to the individual child. This is really to give us kind of that tier one, beginning level picture of where our students are feeling.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. If I may quickly add, I know we're getting locked up into the 5 strengths that people received at the survey. However, that's the tip of the iceberg of the work. What we're missing is the professional development that has gone into this as well. I liken it to us going to a doctor. We get that 30-page report, but it's no good until the doctor sits down with you and helps you understand and explain it thoroughly. And that's what's happened with our principals and our primary leaders. We've actually had more than one professional development session. So while we may hear that we've had surveys, and while we've had 5 strengths, I've actually had an assessment for 34 strengths, as is the case with everybody else, along with a detailed report just about me. And the same is for all of our other individuals. And that same thing, similar, can happen to all of our staff members. And part of our philosophy is, since we know that we continue to look at the budget, we know how important engagement is. And as we increase engagement, to the point about all of the other services and programs that we have in place designed to help the student who is stuck and help the student who doesn't feel any sense of hope, we want to decrease those programs by engaging with our students and having a more engaged staff, so that we need less programming in the future, which translates hopefully to less dollars out of our general fund or any funds that we spend. So there's a thought process behind it. We see this as an investment as we look out into the future, in hopes that we have less programming needs because we have a higher engaged staff and a higher level of students who feel a sense of belonging in our schools, which will translate to a higher level of performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett.
Thank you.
If you will stay with us for the next action item. The next item on the agenda is IS2 Gallup renewal, and it's on the agenda for action.
Okay.
So, do we have any questions now, or could we get a motion for approval?
I think we, Dr. Dillon, if you allow for Dr. Lovett to state the recommended item.
Sorry?
You'll allow for Dr. Lovett to state the recommended item, what the recommendation is.
Oh, okay, I moved too fast.
Yes.
I'm trying to get you away because you've been up there so
Yes,
long,
ma'am.
on the hot seat.
Thank you.
But I was trying to get you away. Thank you.
I appreciate that. So, in the interest of time, I won't reread this summary here because we have talked about Gallup, you have heard about Gallup. I will leave with this last piece. This is an extension, of course, of our Build for Bibb. We talked about this being something embedded in our strategic plan, and it, of course, is a critical step in aligning our employee strengths with the needs of our students. It is therefore recommended that the board authorize the superintendent to enter into a 1-year contract with Gallup for the 23-24 school year, not to exceed $207,538, which will come from general funds with an optional renewal for 1 additional year.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Dr. Whitford. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hamlin. Questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Morgan.
Just one question. Dr. Sims, it's not stated on this item, but I get the sense you're recommending the renewal of this contract.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
So we had motion, second, question. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the word aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
No.
Let's see the hands of the noes. Mr. Morton and Mr. Freeman opposed. The IS2 passes 5-6 to 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lovett.
Okay.
I think you come back again.
Yes, ma'am.
IS3 strategic plan is a presentation. So hopefully we can get through this, so we can get through this, instructional services.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dillard, and again, thank you, board members. At this time, we're going to talk a bit more about our 2023-28 strategic plan performance measures. I will state that you have received a much larger packet, which has the strategic plan performance measures as well as some additional documents, but we're just going to spend some time and highlight the thinking behind the strategic plan performance measure. And I will be joined at this time by Dr. Cleveland Johnson, Emmanuel Frazier, and Stephanie Hartley from our senior cabinet. So I'll go straight into the agenda here. The overview of the presentation, the purpose of the presentation is to provide an overview of the performance measures from the district strategic plan, built for Bibb More Victory Plan. The roadmap for the discussion is the review of the framework. We'll talk about the strategy map. We'll do some overview and highlights of performance measures, and we will leave you with next steps. And our takeaway is our community-inspired strategic plan represents a bold path forward for our students, staff, and families, centered on achieving our vision of empowering our students to learn, lead, innovate, and to serve. And I shared in the previous presentation our mission and vision, and it's presented here for you again. As well as this information, I will pause here and say that in our previous discussions and previous board meetings, we did a little bit of a deeper dive in the strategic plan, but this is the culminating information from that plan. This is that strategic design framework focused on those 3 goals, the guiding principles, and the learner outcomes. So here's how we're going to get there. This is our strategy map. And the strategy map, again, is centered on the 3 goals of student achievement, staff effectiveness, and stakeholder engagement. And what you see underneath each goal represents those specific results or actions that we're going to be engaged in, or actions and initiatives that we will be engaging in under each one of those areas. Here you will see the theory of action. If we build stakeholder engagement of students, parents, staff, and community, plus strengthen staff effectiveness to drive teaching and learning, again, we will in fact maximize student achievement. So that is the theory of action, or the thinking in terms of our strategy and how we're going to be approaching this work. And at this time, I'm going to let Dr. Johnson get us started talking about goal number 1, student achievement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. Strategic goal 1 is student achievement. Specific results 1.1 and 1.2 support the development of the whole child. The performance measures related to these specific results focus on ensuring students attend school regularly and receive the appropriate level of academic and behavioral support. Specific results 1.3 and 1.4 were developed to ensure all students are prepared to succeed at the next level. The performance measures related to these specific results focus on preparing students to be successful in each grade as they matriculate towards graduation and onto their chosen paths of success. Mr. Frazier will now discuss goal area 2.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and good afternoon, board members and Dr. Sims. Strategic goal 2 is staff effectiveness. Specific results 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 were developed to support the professional growth and well-being of staff. The performance measures related to these specific results focus on ensuring our staff are present, provided opportunities for growth, and celebrated for their hard work. Specific results 2.4 and 2.5 were developed to ensure excellence in the management of human capital, as well as operational procedures and resources. The performance measures related to these specific results focus on providing structures of accountability for all staff as we work together to make this strategic plan a success. Next, Ms. Stephanie Hartley will talk about strategic goal 3.
Good afternoon. Strategic goal 3 is stakeholder engagement. Specific results 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 were developed to maximize engagement among schools, the district, and our community for the benefit of our Bibb County students. The performance measures related to these specific results focus on strengthening the relationship amongst all stakeholders in support of our students. And next slide. So as we focus on our next steps with the strategic plan, we will move forward with a full release and communication of the strategic plan. This includes posting our strategic plan to our website, including the executive summary, brochures, strategy map that you saw here in the earlier presentation, assembly, and media releases. We also have a mapped out plan for media postings for this project as well. Year one implementation of strategic goals and initiatives will go ahead and move forward, and periodic updates will be presented to the board and our community members. This concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Questions, board members? Thank you. Mr. Martin?
It looks like we're missing parts of these performance measures. For example, on dealing with. at least on
Mr.
the
Morrison,
copy I have.
I need for you to come a little bit closer to your microphone.
All right. It appears to me we're missing portions of your performance standards. For example, on number 1, it goes through 1.4, and there's only through 1.3, noted on the paper I have as well as the presentation. And it appears that may be also cut off in some of the ones after that.
For the purpose of the PowerPoint presentation, we did only include a snapshot of the performance measures. In the attachment that you received that's also on Assembly, there should be the full list of performance measures and identified targets.
And if we have questions about that, where do we direct our questions?
We can answer them now, or you can also direct them to Dr. Sims if they arise later.
Okay, well, I don't have the whole copy in front of me, so I expect I'll have to ask the questions later. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lovett. And all others for strategic plan presentation. Thank you all. Are there any further questions? If not, we'll move now to IS4, Education Associates Post-Secondary Readiness for Action. Is that Mr. Cassidy?
Ms.
Jennifer
Donnelly.
Donnelly.
Oh,
Ms.
thank you,
Donnelly.
thank you.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. The Program for Exceptional Children is recommending the purchase of an employability life skills curriculum. This program provides students with hands-on lessons in specific job readiness, employability and life skills that will increase post-secondary outcomes. It is recommended that Dr. Sims approve the purchase of the employability life skills curriculum for the high school access program. This is for the fiscal school year 2023 and 2024 at a cost of $305,112. All costs are funded through IDEA.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Donnelly. Is there a motion for approval? Second, motion by Dr. Woodford, who's the second?
Ms. Johnson?
Was it Ms. Johnson, second? Questions? Yes, Ms. Dr. Ward.
I see that this is gonna be at 2 schools. Which schools will be using this?
We have 2 classes that'll be up for our super seniors, students that are over age seniors with cognitive deficits, so those will be at Howard and Southwest.
And these are gonna be our GAA students, right?
Correct.
Any further questions? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the word aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Thank you.
IS4 passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Donnelly. Next item on the agenda is IS5, Mr. Frazier, Kelly Services in Newark.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jackson, board members again, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. The Human Resources Department is recommending that the Bibb County Board of Education approve the renewal of the contract with Kelly Education Services for the 2023-24 school year. The Human Resources Department is recommending that the Bibb County Board of Education approve the renewal of the contract with Kelly Education Services for the 2023-24 school year at a cost not to exceed $3.6 million. Funding will come from a combination of general and federal sources. This is the final renewal of the original agreement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Frazier. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Boyd. Is there a second?
Second.
Is Is that Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Second by Ms. Johnson. Questions? All in favor of the motion, let me know by the word aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion, item 5, credit services renewal, passes. The next item, thank you, Mr. Frazier, so you stay with us for the next. Next item on the agenda, item 6, certified teacher staffing services. This is up for action. Is there a motion for approval?
Dr. Dillon, I don't think he's given the recommendation.
Oh, sorry, sir.
No problem. The Human Resources Department is requested approved to utilize staffing agencies to provide the district with access to highly qualified teacher candidates. This award is used to issue purchase orders on an as-needed basis to provide certified staff for district schools. It is recommended that the Bibb County Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue a purchase order to each vendor on an as-needed basis not exceeding $2,097,600 to provide certified staff for district schools. The funds will be paid out of general fund.
All in favor of the motion, let me know by the word aye. Opposed, the same. Item 6, certified teacher staffing services, passes. And all items, IS1, IS2, IS4, IS5, and IS6 will be sent to the consent agenda. Mr. Chair, this is our long, agenda for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dillon. We now move on to the Fiscal and Support Services Committee. Recognize Chairwoman Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first presentation item is a review of the financials through May 31 of 2023. Ms. Roberts, please proceed.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. Tonight we'll discuss the financial statements for the period of May 31st, 2023. We'll first look at our general fund for the 11 months ending May 31st. Our assets, $110.4 million. Our liabilities, $35.2 million. And our fund balance, $75.3 million. For our statement of revenue and expenditures for the general fund, the approved budget, $221.5 for our revenues. Receipts to date were $217.4 million, which is 98.16% of the total budget. For the expenditures, the approved budget, $229.5 million. Expenditures to date, $210.7 million, with an additional $7.4 million encumbered to date, for total committed of $218.2 million, which is 95.05% of the approved budget. Of the general fund revenues, 54% is from state sources, 43% from local sources, and 3% from federal sources. For the general fund expenditures by function, instruction makes up 61% of the expenditures, improvement of instructional services 3%, pupil services 4%. So these three functions added together is 68% of our total general fund expenditures, which either directly are in the classroom or in direct support of the classroom. Next, we'll look at the financial statements for all funds. Here you'll see that the total assets is $733.8 million, total liabilities $77 million, and total fund balance $656.8 million. For our cash and investments on hand, cash $15 million, investments $140.9 million. For our total liquid assets for all funds combined, $155.9 million. Of our total assets of all funds, capital assets make up 73%, investments 19%, and cash 2%, receivables 5%, and other assets 1%. On the statement of revenues and expenditures for all funds, The total approved budget for the revenues is $409.5 million. The total committed to date was $360.9 million, which is 88.1% of the budget. Total expenditure, approved budget, $426.3 million. Total committed to date of $363.6 million, or 85.29% of the approved budget. Next, we'll look at our ESSER funds for our CARES, which is sunsets on September 30th, 2023. We have committed 99% of the funds. The remaining to be spent is $384,026. For the ARP, 59% has been committed. This sunsets on September 30th, 2024, and the remaining is $41 million. For our eSpots program, the 2016 cash and investments on hand is $2.4 million. And for the 2021 eSpots project, cash and investment is $49 million. The May receipts is $3.5 million. Cumulatively, we have received eSpots sales and interest income of $94.6 million, have expended $45.7 million, and have encumbered $38.5 million, for a total committed of $84.2 million. For our bonds 2020 technology project, there is cash and investment balance of $1.2 million and total committed expenditures of $16 million. Debt service account, the next interest payment is on September 1st of 2023 of $134,375, and the final principal and interest payment will be made on March 1st, 2024 in the amount of $5,509,375. And that is the end of the presentation for this month.
Board members, do you have any questions? Thanks so much for your presentation. And for the next item, FSS2 is the tentative adoption of the millage rate for 2023-2024. Ms. Roberts.
As presented at the call board meeting held Monday, July 17th, the district has received the preliminary tax digest from the Bibb County Tax Commissioner's Office. The final digest numbers should be received no later than Thursday, July the 27th. This change in date to receive the final digest has required a revision in the dates for the public hearings if they are required. Excuse me. This change would allow for adequate time for posting required advertisements in the Telegraph and to the press. So based on the preliminary digest, 3 millage rate options were presented to the board on the 17th. Maintaining the current millage rate of 16.72 mils with option A, it would result in additional revenue to be added to the FY 2024 budget of approximately $10.4 million. If the board approved option B, which is a board partial rollback of 15.685 mils, this would result in additional tax revenue added to the FY 24 budget of approximately $4.9 million. With both option A and option B, the 3 public hearings are required prior to the final adoption of a millage rate, which would be higher than the rollback rate. If the board approved option C, the rollback millage rate of 14.650 mils, no public hearings are required. Under option C, the tax revenue for FY 2024
would be reduced by approximately $691,280. Even though under option A or option B, there would be a tax increase for the school district's portion of the property taxes, there still would be an overall decrease to the property owner when combining the district's millage rate adjustment with Macon Bibb County's 5 mil decrease. The revised dates for the 3 public hearings, if they are required under option A and option B, would be Wednesday, August the 9th at 12 p.m., Wednesday, August the 9th at 5 p.m., Wednesday, August the 6th at 6 p.m., with the final adoption at a regular board meeting on August the 17th. The recommendation: it is recommended that the Bibb County Board of Education choose to tentatively adopt either option A at 16.72 mils, option B at 15.685 mils, or option C at 14.65 mils as the calendar year 2023 millage rate for the Bibb County School District. As a reminder that these are approximately and may slightly change once we have the final digest. It is recommended also that the board approve the above listed dates for public hearings if required for either option A or option B, if either of these are tentatively adopted by the board.
You have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve option C.
Roll call.
We're gonna do a roll call. I'm just gonna make a motion that we, go around the room and then, that if A or B is selected, then the calendar is approved, but I guess we don't even have to make a motion yet. Is that what I'm hearing? Or do you wanna just go straight to option C and see how it goes?
I'm making a motion for approval of option C. I haven't heard a second yet.
Second.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
I have a question. What option did you say, Mr. Freeman? I couldn't hear you.
Option C, which would be a full rollback, no additional tax increase.
So that's what you're going to do.
That's the motion I'm making.
So Madam Chair, just where we are right now, there's a motion and a second, so let's, get that, and then we'll finish your question.
I'd like to speak.
Mr. Freeman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Fellow board members and members of the public, we've had an extensive budget process, and Ms. Roberts and her team have done an amazing job getting us to where we are, improving the budget we have. We have seen the projections for the next 5 years, and the pluses and minuses of approving A through C. I've received a large amount of feedback, especially in the last 24 hours. But prior to that, I've been engaged with other members of the public who had concerns about us doing anything other than a full rollback. And I'd like to address some of those concerns because I think it's important that we meet those concerns with facts. One of those statements was that if we didn't do a full rollback, we wouldn't be showing unity with Macon Bibb, who's doing a millage rate reduction. My response to that is that Macon Bibb also just passed an OLOS. And as board members know, Houston County has an education OLOS that they were grandfathered in 2 years ago. It allows them to spend money on salaries for teachers. This board does not have the legal authority to pass an education OLOS. Macon Bibb does, and I'm glad they did, that they're doing that for the salaries for Macon Bibb. That's not an option for us. So we're not in the same boat when it comes to what our revenue streams are. Over the past year, Macon Bibb has also taken in money from the speed cameras, the speed zone cameras that have been placed in the school systems of the high schools, or the majority of the high schools. That revenue has all gone to Macon Bibb. So if you look at it from that point of view, Macon Bibb has had 2 additional tax revenue streams this year that we did not have. And we need to recognize that. Despite that, our staff has worked hard to come up with a budget within the means of what we have, and has come up with a proposal then I know it's probably not their preferred proposal if we did a full rollback. What I've heard from the public also has to do with the fact that we're not willing to make additional cuts. And I think to me that really comes down to a question of, does the public trust us to do what we say we want to do in the future regarding cuts? We have been talking since before Dr. Sims came on board about the need to do some consolidation of schools. And it's been kind of one of those things we talk about, we dance around, even in this proposal. If you look at option C, it says we must consolidate or reduce 2 schools within the next 5 years. We select option C. Personally, I think that's something we need to be doing. I think that the first step in showing our commitment to the public that that's our plan, and that's what we intend to do, is what we did with Springdale School. We're going to hear a presentation about Springdale School, and that presentation will talk about how many students the new Springdale will accommodate. We were very intentional in building Springdale that it be able to accommodate more students than the current Springdale, with a mind toward the need for consolidation in the future. And so I think that's one example that we show the public that we are being fiscally responsible. We are making the cuts that are necessary. We are trying to work within the means that we have. We also have had the issue of how long has it been since we had a tax increase? Well, the data was clear in the presentation that Ms. Roberts gave earlier this week, that the last time there was a millage rate increase was 2016. We're now in 2023, and we've rolled back the millage rate to make sure there's not a property increase every year. And we have worked to stay within those revenue streams that we have available. We've been blessed that we had the ARP funds coming in, but they were limited in scope and limited in time, and they will be gone. They cannot be spent on certain things. I think we've done well with our stewardship of those funds, and even in some projects that I hope will be announced in the future. At the same time, we have to look at what the costs have been to our community. Every one of us pays more when we go to the gas pump. Every one of us pays more when we go to the grocery store. Those same costs happen in our school district. We are paying more for gas. We're paying more for food. We're having to compete with Houston County who can pay more in salaries because of that loss. We have, ideally, if we pass ARD, we'd be able to do a certified salary scale, which would make us more competitive, on par with our surrounding districts. As far as our classified, which really is our bus drivers, our police officers, our school nutrition, and that's where we're lacking right now. So in a perfect world, I would like to approve option A. I'd like to do that. I'd like to say these are things we need to do. But at the same time, we have to look at the public sentiment, the public trust. And I've heard from too many people who are telling me now is not the time for a tax increase, and that they hope we will not do a tax increase here this year. So I'm recommending option C because I think that's what should happen, with the full understanding that we will continue to make the cuts that are necessary. And in the future, we will have to raise the millage rate if those cuts are not as effective and if costs continue to spiral and inflation continues to spiral like it has. But I want to thank my fellow board members and especially the administration for the work they've done to work within the parameters we've given them. And I have no doubt that if we approve option C, they'll continue to do that monumental work, even though it will be harder for them and even the costs continue to rise. But I think it's a matter of showing the public that we are committed, that they should trust us, and that we'll do more to show them that next time, if there is a military increase, that we've done what's necessary to show that we're committed to cutting costs, and a military would only be done if necessary. That's my thoughts, and that's why I proposed option C.
Other questions? Dr. Dillard?
I don't have a question, but Mr. Freeman well said, covered everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr. Morton?
I'm curious, Dr. Sims, do you have an opinion or recommendation on this matter?
Thank you, Board Member Morton. Yes, I do. And as I shared in recent messaging I did send out to the community, where I stated the need for us to either increase revenues or decrease costs, or a combination of both. Similar to what Board Member Freeman said, I'm in favor, in the perfect world, of option A. It will position us to fairly compensate, to recruit and retain the best possible educators for our community. And we're thinking from a long-term standpoint. It does concern me that we lag behind the state average, local district averages of districts of our same size or similar size. And we know that as we compete for talent, it's everybody's challenge right now with significant vacancies both in operational and teacher-based areas. However, I will say that my stance is whatever we do, we still owe it to our taxpayers and our community to advocate for cuts. One of our immediate next steps, and we've already talked about it with some of my senior cabinet, is to engage in a year-long set of activities involving many of our employees to look carefully at all of our expenditures and let's see exactly how we can engage in cuts. And at the appropriate time, we will share what our ambitious goal is over the course of however many years it would take. But we do understand the need to not only be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, but also to look carefully at everything that we do, and especially since we will sunset ESSA funding in FY24, we know that that's gonna cause us to look carefully at how we spend funds. So it's gonna be the perfect opportunity in anticipation of that sunset to look at this from both ends, opportunities to increase revenues and opportunities to decrease costs. And I just know that as we look at taking care of our employees, this will position us, not just in the short term, but in the long term, of putting ourselves in a competitive space as we vie. And it is a tough market, vying for good talent. And we just believe that Macon Bibb County deserves the best employees across the board. So respectfully, that is where my lean is. However, I stand with whatever recommendation comes from my Board of Education, and we will either way continue to look at how we can cut costs and also to continue to look at how we can fairly compensate all of our employees in anticipation of what may be a better time. So regardless of what we do today, I, as your superintendent, stand in support, and we will run with fierce force moving forward for the betterment of this district.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Freeman, for the comments that you mentioned earlier, and that was Sims, what you just shared with us. A couple things I want you to share. One, I'm excited that our new strategic plan, one of the core tenets of it is stakeholder engagement. Because it's great to see so many constituents make contact in regards to the military, right? It's also good to see so many of you here today with us in person. But in order for us to be the best version of ourselves as a school district, the best version of ourselves as a community, it's going to take stakeholder engagement every single day. The good days, the bad days, the rough days, through the not so certain days. But we need your engagement each and every day. With that engagement, we will have known more broadly across this community how we got to this point. Sorry, that's a fly that keeps going in. But how we got to this point, all right? Just a few months ago, the state, the General Assembly, with the signature of the governor, passed another round of unfunded state mandates. This board and the boards before us have been doing the due diligence with dotting I's, crossing T's to make sure that we are utilizing taxpayer funds appropriately. And that's why we had an opportunity to have a reserve, a fund balance. The state continues to provide unfunded mandates, it will continue to deplete our fund balance. So that's what happened here. We entered into this year from a really strong financial state. And now, the fiscal stability of our district is under review because of some of the unfunded state mandates that we are now having to find ways to pay for in our budget. So that's one thing I wanted to share. Secondly, as Dr. Sims just reminded us again, our educators, both our classified and non-certified educators and employees, deserve our investment. They really do. And they deserve to have competitive salaries that are afforded across the state of Georgia. And so we keep wondering why we continue in this ever-ending cycle. It's like we're chasing our tail. Because we have those educators coming in, all right, and then another opportunity may present themselves in another county, all right? They love what they do, but they have to make sure that, they have what they need and want to take care of home. So we can't fault them for leaving our county. And then, we wonder, well, why are test scores going out there? This, that, and the third. When our best educators, our best leaders, right, there will be no need for Gallup if we have the investment prior to today. But that is where we are. We continue to chase our tail because we do not have the proper investment in those men and women that we trust with our children each and every day. I want to share that as well. Additionally, I think it's counterproductive to say that we're going to boost student achievement by decreasing the amount of critical resources at their disposal. Just something to think about. How can you truly boost student achievement if you're going to reduce the amount of resources that are at their disposal? I really don't understand it. Our educators need an arsenal of resources at their disposal to serve the unique needs of our students. So that's something I want for us to consider and think about as we engage on this new strategic plan, where stakeholder engagement lies as one of those pillars of our plan, so that you understand the type of investment that we are all asking each other to make when we consider what the millage rate is going to be from year to year. And so I will support option C, but I am urging and begging our community to stay engaged. We have school councils available at every single school in our community. We have board meetings this time every month, and we would love to see them filled every single month on all of the issues that are important to us. Right? We can't just wait until it's time to talk about taxes and think that this is the only thing that matters. It isn't. Right? Our educators deserve the best. Our students deserve the best. That's the only way that we're going to address the challenges that exist in our community is through the proper investment in our students and our educators. And so I too will again support option C and look forward to continuing conversation. Thank you.
Dr. Woodford? Thank you. First of all, I agree with everything that's been said this far, and I do intend on supporting option C as well, but with a heavy heart. I just want to thank all of our stakeholders in advance for your patience as this board considers and has to make some very hard decisions. Some of us, maybe some more than others, will have to make sacrifices. So I just want us to remember that it is all about our students. It's about our students. And I, again, am prepared to support option C and thank my colleagues for all that they do.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. It is been with a heavy heart that I'm trying to make a decision as to which option I will take. Like the president said, we have burdens placed upon us at the state level that we must take care of without any funding from. They must be done. But we need the funding. The funding has to come from somewhere. I understand that no one wants their taxes raised. I understand about the price that the gas costs. Like my friend, Mr. Freeman said, and I understand about the prices at the grocery store. So I have to think beyond my needs because I can afford to go get me some gas every now and then. And I can afford to eat every now and then. But I have to think about the other person who may not be in the position that I'm in, where everything continues to go up. At some point, there has to be a level playing field. I don't want to see any cuts in the school system with staff. I don't want to see any closing of the schools. And I don't want to see the taxes go up. So we can't have our cake and eat it. So I'm still deciding. But I think my mind is pretty much made up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Other comments? Dr. Sims?
Thank you. Since I was asked the question, I do want to underscore one thing that Ms. Roberts said, and I want to extend my thank you to her and her team for a fine job in this whole process. And that was the point. This was part of my recommendation of option A when I was asked, in that this is combined with making Bibb County reduction of 5 meals. I just want to make sure we're correcting that this will result in a net decrease in taxes. And because of that, that is one of the pieces of rationale behind us also having an opportunity to look out for the taxpayer while at the same time looking out for the district. I just want to go on record to state that as part of my rationale as well. Thank you so much.
Dr. Dillard?
Well, everything has been said. I've already said my support for C. But I do want to say to Ms. Roberts and her team that you all have been thorough. You've given us the good, the bad, the ugly. And we saw some good. We didn't like the bad. And we certainly didn't like the ugly. So, that being said, the ugly part, now we have to look at it and see how we can make it look pretty. How we can make things look better for our school system. Certainly for our employees. Certainly for this community. It's difficult and challenging for us as a board to try to make these decisions because somebody is going to lose out no matter which way we go. But you all have done a thorough, exceptional job of going underneath every crack, around every hole, everywhere, looking for money, seeing the money, seeing where we are, and what we're going to be by 2029, and what we're going to need to do now to make things better for us as we move on into the year 29. Thank you, thank you, thank your team. You all are some of the finest financial analysts, or whatever we might call you, however we might label it. You have done an outstanding job. And I personally say thank you. I've been around with you for a long time, and your team. And I'm very
Roberts. I'd very much like to echo Dr. Diller's comments. Thank you so much to you and your team for all of your hard work and all of the effort that went into putting together the budget, figuring out how to fund the budget, looking at all of the possibilities in terms of the expenditures and the effect on our financial condition going forward under each of the scenarios and the choices that will have to be made. And so I believe that this is a critical year, year one of the strategic plan. This is a year where, as Dr. Diller said, everything needs to be opened up, all the options need to be put on the table. And the direction of the district and the funding, the finding of the resources going forward, again, this will be a critical year. So thank you very much.
Dr. Boyd?
I can certainly agree for option C. I believe we have to be good stewards of the money that's provided to us by the county. I think the thing that hurts me the most is when we see the list of schools that we have that do not qualify for funding from the state because of the size. And we have to look at doing something like that to show that we are trying to be fiscally responsible. We have a lot of them that don't pull in the funds that are necessary. But I think we, together, we're going to need to look and see what the best step for that is and where we can cut. Because I think the community would understand that we are doing our best to do that. But I would also want to promise that after we've shown that we have done our best, that if we have to raise the millage rate to lay understand we need.
Mr. Morton?
Both Dr. Dillard and I were on the board the last time we raised taxes. And that happened after the system had done everything it could to lower its expenses, made some really hard decisions. And really that's what we've got to do. One thing I've heard is, don't raise taxes until you've shown us you've gone through the things you need to do to save money where you can. And that's really the only way to do it. Because otherwise you're not demonstrating the kind of fiscal accountability and fiscal responsibility that is expected of an elected board member. So I'm glad to hear we're going to take the next, hopefully take the next, I know we will, take the next 12 months to figure out what we need to do to be as efficient as we can in order to be as fiscally responsible as we can before we address the public again about the potential for raising taxes. It's the only right way to do it. Thank you.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. Thank you. The next item is number FSS4, fiscal year 2024 district contract for garbage and recycling. Ms. Elaine Wilson-Everly.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. The procurement department is seeking board approval to award the garbage and recycling contract for FY24 school year under RFP 23-054. This is a one-year contract with the option of 3 renewals. The recommendation. It is recommended that the Bibb County Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue a purchase order for $225,000 to Waste Management for the FY 2024 contractual agreement of garbage and recycling services. The funding source will be general funds.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Dr. Dillard. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the motion, please state by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. Thank you, Ms. Beverly. The next item is number FSS4, district-wide security upgrades. Mr. Sam Kitchens.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, board members, Superintendent Dr. Sims. As part of the 2021 East Loss projects, Board of Education approved district-wide upgrades to security cameras and intrusion systems. We're presenting this memorandum recommending a firm to provide those enhanced security systems at all facilities. These high-tech security cameras, analytics, and radar surveillance that provide enhanced security for all facilities, properties, including athletic fields. And our recommendation is that the Board of Education authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Johnson Controls Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $5,622,472.76. Provide district-wide upgrades to security cameras and intrusion systems. This project will be funded through 2021 lease costs and utilize source quote contract 030421-TIS.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Dr. Boyd, seconded by Dr. Dillard. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Johnson.
I'm looking at the schools where you're gonna place the camera. Okay. Even Alexandria Academy, there is no amount by that school.
Yes, ma'am. About 2 months ago, we had some equipment fail at that school. So when we replaced it, we went ahead and upgraded it with this high-tech camera system. So it's the first one to already do it.
Thank you, I was just wondering if it was left out. Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. The next item is number FSS6, the district contract copiers, FSS5, district contract copiers. Elaine Wilson-Beverly.
Good afternoon. The procurement department is seeking board approval to award a multifunction copier contract to Superior Document Solutions. This will be a one-year contract with the option of 3 renewals. The new contract is based off the cooperative agreement 083116-SEC. It is recommended that the Bibb County Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue a purchase order for $169,608 to Superior Document Solutions for the FY24 contractual agreement of multifunction device leases. The funding source will be general funds.
You have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So
Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Dr. Dillard. Are there any questions? Mr. Morton?
Ms. Wilson-Beverly, is maintenance service a part of this contract, or will that be a separate contract?
those are separate contracts, so the district takes care of the leases, the schools actually pay for their maintenance.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. The next number is number FSS6, gas and diesel fuel purchases. Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, Superintendent Dr. Sams, and board members. The Transportation Department seeks board approval to spend in excess of $150,000 with Walk Oil, Mansfield, and Osan petroleum companies. The companies supply gas and diesel fuel for operation of district-owned vehicles and equipment. Price quotes are obtained prior to orders from each of the vendors, and the order is placed with the vendor that provides the lowest price on that day. It is recommended that the board approve purchases of more than $150,000 for gas and diesel fuel purchases Gargoyle, Mansfield, and Tucson Petroleum for FY '24. The funding source is the FY '24 general funds budget.
You have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Dr. Dillard.
Second.
Second by Mr. Freeman. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those, excuse me, Mr. Freeman.
I would just like to point out that it's underscores what I said earlier about prices going up.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for keeping us up to speed.
Yes, sir.
Hearing no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. The next item is number FSS 7, propane fuel purchase. Mr. Kitchens, excuse me, Mr. Jackson.
The Transportation Department seeks board approval to purchase propane fuel from Federal Gas. The annual cost of propane fuel use for district-owned school buses will exceed the threshold of $150,000. This is a renewal of bid 21-013, which was released in February of '21. It is recommended that the board approve the renewal of propane fuel purchases from Federal Gas and authorize the superintendent to issue the purchase order. The funding source for this expenditure will be FY '24 general fund budget, and propane fuel purchases are not expected to exceed $900,000.
You have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Dr. Woodford. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. The next item is number FSS 8, school nutrition temporary staffing.
Good evening, President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. The school districts and school nutrition programs across the country have experienced severe staff shortages since the onset of the pandemic and have yet to recover. During the 2022-2023 school year, school nutrition was unable to fill 50% of our positions needed to operate effective nutrition services. Though paid their regular salaries, employees refused to work, citing exhaustion, stress, or just needing a break. To maintain regulatory compliance of the BCSD school nutrition program, it is as required by USDA and Bibb, the nutrition department needs to utilize as needed contracted personnel. Nutrition assistants, servers, cashiers, and food service personnel may be needed temporarily to provide optimal nutrition services to students. The school nutrition department is seeking board approval to issue a purchase order on an as-needed basis for temporary staffing for FY '24. If approved, this will be the first year of a 4-year agreement for IFB 23-056. The funds will be paid out of the school nutrition fund. It is recommended that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue a purchase order to each vendor on an as-needed basis, not to exceed the total amount of $165,730 to provide as-needed temporary staffing for the nutrition department.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Boyd, seconded by Dr. Dillard. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. The motion carries unanimously and will be sent to the consent agenda. Thank you, Ms. Schuman. The next item is number FSS 9, Springdale Elementary School. Mr. Sam Kitchens.
Good afternoon again, board members, President Jackson, Superintendent Dr. Sims. While I'm very, very excited to bring this presentation tonight, I do understand we have some time constraints. So So our new facility will be 90,410 square feet, which is about 15,000 square feet more than what we have now. There's close to 27 acres that we currently have. Our student capacity is 775 that we're building for, expanding up to 900. And just for reference, we currently have about 580 students in the school, and our capacity is 625, so we're at about 93-94% capacity in that school. Our site details, one of our biggest issues was having cars out on the north side, not being able to get off the road anymore in the afternoons. So our car loop capacity there will give us 120 cars off of the street and onto our site. And parking spaces for parents and for staff, 175. We identified individualized the bus loop, car loop. So bus loop is at the rear of the facility, completely different from where parents come in and drop off. And this one, it's a little hard to see, but you'll notice on the front side of the new existing building. So first, in the red outline is where, in the light green space, you'll see where our existing building is that will be taken down. That is the current building we're in. The new building will be to the left of it. And so our loop will begin where we come in now to drop off students with car parking. That's where our loop will start. It'll be double stacked all the way around and come in front of the view school. Coming back out with an option to go back into the parking place. The beauty that we'll have now is two lanes. Right now we have one lane coming in that goes into two and back into one. Coming out, we have one lane turning left and one lane turning right. Well, in the mornings, you're not able to turn left, you can only go right and then back around. So this will give us a defined 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out at all times. I think it's a very good design and will help us tremendously with the traffic problem on the side. This is a rendition of the front of the school. This rendition actually is where you would be standing where the existing school is. When in phase 2, which we'll get in just a second, next summer when this school is demoed, you'll have a green space out there provided with a dedicated walkway from the school to the green space. This is a little closer to the front of the building and that's your dedicated walk space. The parking on both sides. That'll be a raised walkway, so that's a traffic calming device as well. This is the view from the north side. You go by the front of the school. And this is, as you get up to it, you'll notice that there's a fence line there. That is actually, there's about a 14-foot grade drop from the street level down to the school. So instead of having to slope it down, we've got a retaining wall there that we'll be able to use on the backside for some parks and grass. This is an area view now of where we were about 2 weeks ago. One question you may be asking about groundbreaking that we'll have in August. This is typical of when we start breaking ground in the summertime. We'll have it identified. You'll see where the new site will be when we break ground in August. This is simply to remove, get the site at grade level where we can start building on it, getting all the contemporary infrastructure, stormwater, drainage, and sanitary sewer. And we had fun with this one with the wetlands, delineated wetlands around the site there. So we've taken all the immediate precautions to maintain those areas as required. So phase 1, which is now, we are site clearing, doing the temporary stormwater drainage we talked about. One cut to the existing parking lot that is in place now. We patched in time for open day school this year. August through May, we will break ground, put in the infrastructure, construct a new school, and the parent-proof parking, parent and parking lots. And then phase 2, May through August next summer, when the school is released for summer, we will demo the old building, build the finalized parking, and create the green spaces, preparing them to move in August of 2024.
Dr. Boyd.
I have a question. Are we gonna look at reusing some of the materials like bricks or anything like that?
So we're not able to reuse the bricks, but what we've looked at in the past is preserving some of them in case it's something the school wants to identify a space that we can create something out of something over there. So whether they celebrate having.
Or like if there's a board member whose daddy worked on that school that might want one?
Similar to what we did with John.
Dr. Woodford.
I also have a similar question. So my daughter attended Springdale, and her, I'm sorry, can you hear me? My daughter attended Springdale, and some of her fellow classmates buried a time capsule. So I want to make sure that when y'all are doing your excavation, that you pay careful attention to any, time capsules that you run into.
It has been identified, located, and preserved. It's in its 20th year, so we didn't think it was time to pull it up. So yes, it'll still be there.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Freeman?
Just a quick comment. I want to thank you on behalf of my 4-year-old for putting all this construction equipment out on the way for his ride to school. I hear about it every morning.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank y'all and the voters for supporting this law that provides these buildings. Thank you.
That concludes the business of the Fiscal Support Services Committee. FS2 through FSS8 passed unanimously and will be sent to consent agenda. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hamlin. We now move on to the Policies and Rules Committee. The chair now recognizes Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, President Jackson. We have 6 items under policy and rules. 3 are action items, 3 are information items. First up is PR1 JV student attendance.
Good afternoon, President Jackson, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Sims. The district is presenting policy JV student attendance for second reading. There have been no changes to policy JV student attendance between first and second reading. It is recommended that the County Board of Education approve the revision of policy JV student attendance.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Dillard, second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor of the motion, let me know by the word aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. There is none. PR1 passes unanimously and moves to the consent agenda. Next, we have PR2, JVB entrance age.
The district is presenting policy JVB interest age for second reading. There have been no changes to policy JVB interest age between the first and second reading. It is recommended that the County Board of Education approve the revision of policy JVB interest age.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hanlon. I'm going to give you a second to Dr. Boyd because I can hear it easier. Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the word aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. There is none, and PR2 passes unanimously to move to the consent agenda. Our last action item is PR3, policy KC Board Community Relations.
The district is presenting policy KC Board Community Relations for second reading. There have been no changes made to policy KC between first and second reading. It is recommended that the County Board of Education approve the revision of policy KC Board Community Relations.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Woodford, and second, I'm going to give Dr. Dillard because I saw her hand before I heard you, Ms. Johnson. It's whatever I see or hear first. I think
That's fine.
okay. Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the word aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. There is none, and PR3 passes unanimously.
sake of time, do you mind if we, just refer those through?
Go as fast as I can, sir. Okay. All right, Ms. Hill, with our information items, go ahead.
Be very brief. The district is presenting policy JCBA, that's JCBA, student code of conduct for first reading. Revisions are made to policy JCBA, student code of conduct, to make this policy consistent with other district policies. The district will post revised policy JCBA, student code of conduct on assembly to receive feedback from board members and the public for 30 days, and we will bring it back at the next board meeting for second reading for final adoption and approval.
And PR 5,
For district is presenting policy JCBE, student hearing procedures for first reading. We are making this changes to this policy to make it consistent with other district policies, but also updating it to be consistent with OCGA 20-2-754 as it relates to the time frame for the hearing before the board, and provide notice of when the student will bring a attorney to the student discipline hearing. A provision is also added to address the students when students are expelled from their school system and attempt to enroll into the existing district. The next steps will be as previously stated.
and finally, PR 6.
The district is presenting policy IDPD when you are further first reading. Revisions are made to this policy to make it consistent with other district policies, and the next steps will be as previously stated.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hill. That concludes policy rules, PR 1 through PR 3 passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now move on to the Personnel Services Committee. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe we have need for executive session, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I may have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of personnel matters, future acquisition of property, pending litigation, and/or school safety. That's a motion. Moved by Mr. Woodford, seconded by Mr. Johnson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Board members, we can move swiftly to our room. Once we take a second, we want to recognize the attendance of Commissioner Wilder as well as Commissioner Howard. Thank you for being here with us today. We're not in executive session.
have a motion to come out of executive session? So moved by Dr. Woodford, second by Ms. Johnson. All those in favor of coming out of executive session, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are out of executive session. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve PS1, PS2, and PS6 as presented.
So moved.
So moved by Ms.
Second.
Who had the second, Dr. Dillon?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of approving PS1, PS2, and PS6 as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. That concludes the Business and Personnel Services Committee. Mr. President, PS1, 2, and 6 will go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go back for just 1 second to IS 5. It was an item regarding Kelly Services and contract renewal. One of these four, thank you to our admin team for catching this for us. I want to make sure that we properly send this to our consent agenda. There was not a motion or a second, so at this time, is there a motion to approve IS 5, Kelly Services contract renewal?
I'll make a motion that it should have been brought to the attention of the chair.
Motion by Dr. Dillon, second by Mr. Marshall. Any other evidence? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right. IS 6.
Make a motion to approve IS 6.
All right, IS 6 is our certified teacher staffing services. Motion by Mr. Freeman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say right. All right, IS 6 will be sent to the consent agenda, Dr. Dillon.
I have been indicated we voted, so you're saying IS 5 and IS 6 we didn't vote on?
I incorrectly stated IS 5, it should have been IS 6. IS 6 was not motioned nor seconded to be sent to the consent agenda. We went straight into a vote.
Okay, so you changed it from 5 to 6?
Correct, it should have been IS 6. I stand corrected.
I have recorded that we did vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
And it should have been brought to attention at that time.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. We just found out. I appreciate it. All right, and so this completes all of the action items for our committee meetings. Please, board members, take a look at the information items inside your packet. The committee meeting is now adjourned. And now, we will move straight into the holiday report. It is Thursday, July 20th, 2023. It is now 6:37 p.m. and the monthly meeting of the Bibb County Board of Education will now come to order. We start first with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I do not want to mess up Mr. Floor's first name. Mr. Floor, can you come to this podium, to this microphone, and pronounce your first name to us? No, we don't want to pronounce your first name. Okay. Well, he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He's a second grader at Divine Field Academy of Arts.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Floor. Hold on for just a moment. Our superintendent has a little bit for you. Can we give Mr. Floor a round of applause? welcome Reverend Raymond Hampton, Usher's Chapel, CME Church.
Greetings to each of you. Shall we pray? We come now as a nation founded upon the principles of God. And it is under this preservation and protection that we allow even now to be one nation indivisible. And under this auspice, we seek your guidance of heart, mind, and spirit. As the Bibb County School Board deliberates decisions made for good and the well-being of all, we invoke fairness, we invoke right thought, we invoke holistic speech. As this body intercedes on behalf of those who will educate, examine, acquire knowledge, and gain understanding, may all seek to appeal the supreme wisdom and impart the blessings of successful outcomes and honorable conclusions. For the authority given to and through all staff members, both teaching and support, we pray for enlightenment, entrusted enthusiasm, and enthusiastic conversation that will foster goodwill. Help us to seek and understand the issues which have affixed themselves to the institutions of education, and allow this board to deliberate with both clarity and charity. We ask that you would give wisdom to both those who seek and those who find solutions. Give to this board the courage to see the solutions through the lens of dignity and grace. As we pray for this school year 2023-2024, we pray for the safety of our children, the safety of all staff, the safety of all those who are entrusted to the care of community. And we declare a safe school year, a safe environment, physical protection. We declare divine covering and an ease of personhood without fear of harm. Again, we pray these things, holding fast to the God-given principles founded upon this nation and its people and in its institutions. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brother Captain. We now move on to the report of the superintendent. Dr. Sanders.
Thank you, and good evening once again to all of you. And before I begin my report, I did get permission from Mr. Floyd to pronounce his name on his behalf. Yaroslav. Did I say it correctly? Yaroslav Caden Floyd. Let's give him another round of applause. So it is the end of the summer, or towards the end of the summer, and here are a few highlights from our past month that I'm excited to share. It is exciting to see Central High School alum Sasha Hutchins from the original Broadway cast of Hamilton on the cover of the latest issue of Making magazine. She recently made a visit back home, and the magazine had the opportunity to photograph her at Hutchins' funeral home established 100 years ago. That's her grandfather, Bill Hutchins, over her shoulder. Her dance teacher from her adolescence, Melody Emery of Dance Dynamics, interviewed her because she has played a key role in the actor, dancer, and producer's life. Pick up a copy of the magazine and read about this Bibb graduate's outstanding musical journey. Summer learning in action. Bibb educators participated in MathCon 2023, where they learned more about implementing the new Georgia K-12 mathematics standards this school year. Thank you to those teachers who took time from their well-deserved summer break to learn about the new math standards, lessons they'll share with other teachers during the pre-planning. Teachers boarded the SS Education for a 3-day technology integration learning cruise this month, minus the water. Bibb teachers spent time diving in at BCSD's Dig In, short for Digital Integration Conference. This year's theme, Sailing the 4 Seas, found teachers learning how to harness the power of technology to engage students in the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Personalized learning, Oswobot, and increasing student engagement using Canva were just some of the highlights. These teachers are ready to set sail for success as they navigate students towards a brighter future. Central office staff spent time this summer engaging in Wednesday wellness activities. I hate that picture they took of me on Teams, but I was getting it in, y'all. The weekly activities led by the Wonder Twins have promoted physical, mental, and emotional well-being for district employees. Activities have included line dancing, Zumba, core exercises, and stretching. District staff didn't just spend time learning this summer. Some of them also led professional learning on a national level. In June, several instructional leaders from Bibb presented on their work, moving from designation status to distinction at the 2023 Model Schools Conference in Orlando. Shout out to Presenter Stephen Jones, Executive Officer, and Principals Dr. Donna Walker-Thompson, Deshaun Crawford, Dr. Sonia Coley, and Sally Moody. I think Mr. Jones is here in the back. Would you wave your hand? Mr. Jones, job well done. Building students up this summer. Last month, more than 60 men visited the Summer Academy campus at Allen Hudson Middle School to invest in young men for whom they have no fiduciary responsibility. More than 90 young men from multiple neighborhoods and sides of town learned how to tie a tie, discussed some cardinal rules of manhood, read If by Rudyard Kipling, and were led in making affirmations about themselves. Meanwhile, about 70 young ladies were brought together, and there was nothing but pouring, planting, and painting going on. The experience was one wherein young ladies could participate in conversations of self-worth and self-love, while painting a representation of their beauty on canvas. To every donor, every participant, and every supporter, thank you for exemplifying what it means to show up for students when called upon. A key piece identified in our strategic plan, hashtag Built for Bibb, More Victory Plan. Bibb science teacher Shamika Davis of Southwest High School and Dr. Sunitha Panda of Northeast High School are spending the week kayaking the state and conducting experiments with the Georgia Aquarium's Rivers to Reef program. This 5-day elite workshop provides science teachers an opportunity to travel from Atlanta down the Ocmulgee to the Altamaha River and offshore to Grays Reef Marine Sanctuary. Rivers to Reefs gives teachers hands-on experience to create better stewards and advocates for the waterways in their communities, as well as pass on their passion from the experience directly to our students. And earlier this week, the district hosted a summer graduation ceremony for students who completed the requirements for graduation during summer school. We are incredibly proud of the dedication these students have displayed, and we look forward to their next step. Speaking of next steps, this week, our Human Resources Department kicked off the annual New Teacher Orientation held this year at Central High School. Educators who are new to the district or new to the teaching profession all together have gathered all week at Central as well as their own schools this week to learn about classroom management, benefits, professional ethics, and more. This event also provided them the opportunity to connect with a variety of community partners. And on the horizon, we have our district convocation. We will host our convocation Tuesday, July the 25th at 9 o'clock a.m. The convocation has been designed to reflect this year's theme of More Victory Plan, Together. Our guest speaker this year is Dr. Danyal Dickey, Chief Executive Officer and Lead Consultant for Educational Epiphany. Dr. Dickey and his team are leading provider of standards-informed instructional materials for early and continuing literacy, the core content areas, as well as targeted professional development for teachers, school leaders, central office personnel, superintendents, state departments of education, and professional associations. Before I turn the floor over to Dr. Katika Lovett for further presentations, if anybody in the room is the winner and the holder of that $1 billion ticket, let's become friends before we leave tonight. Get a benefit both of us. And with that said, Dr. Lovett, you got the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Sims, and good evening again to our board members and community members as well. This evening, we would like to introduce you to one of our newest district leaders. At this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. LaShawn Farouche, Director of Partnerships, Projects, and Engagement, to please come forward to greet our board members and to receive a small welcome into your new role. Great, thank you. Mrs. Simmons, we're excited to build even greater partnerships and engagement with your support here in Bibb. Thank you.
And that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. Next on our agenda is invitation to visitors to address the board. Do you have any? Seeing none, we'll move on to see if there's a need for executive session. Is there an additional need for executive session?
No, sir.
Hearing no need for executive session, we now move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of all items that were passed unanimously earlier at our board meeting, including confirmation of minutes from our June 15th board meeting, as well as IS4 through IS6, FSS 2 through FSS 8, PR1 through PR3, and PS1 through PS6. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Mr. Freeman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by, who was that, Dr. Boyd? Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is approved. We now move on to IS1, Gallup renewal. Is there a motion for approval?
Mr. President, it's actually IS2. IS1 was the Gallup presentation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve IS2?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hamlin, is there a second? Second by Dr. Boyd. Any other readiness? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say right. Nay. All right, and being shared, the ayes have it, and that passes by a vote of 6 to 2. All right, that completes all of our business for tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Freeman, is there a second? Second by Ms. Johnson. Seeing no questions, there's no other readiness. Oh, Ms. Hamlin. Yes, Dr. Sims, if you would announce the personnel of the new hire for, like I said.
Yes, it's my pleasure to welcome Antonio Simmons, who will be our new Director of Maintenance and Facilities. He is not here tonight, however, we will welcome him officially at our office board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, Mr. Simmons. All right,